It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
I have a dream. One day, this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal.
The world will little note nor long remember what we say, but it can never forget what they did.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Hello and welcome to Eccentric Earth, the podcast where I, your host Amy Walker, delve into stories from across history with a guest who has no idea what the topic's going to be. Joining me this week is Glenn Jakeman.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Warm.
Yes. Hopefully it's cooler for the listeners when this comes out, but at the minute it is a horrible warm week.
Oh, it's heat wave, apparently. Heat wave, and it's going to last till next Thursday, I'm told.
Oh, dear.
Yes. But the vast majority of the UK seem all right with it, but I seem to be in that sort of minority of people who just want it to go away. But then I'm on the hefty side, so it's no fun for us heifers. It's you know, we're carrying more weight around than most people because we like eating food. So yeah, I suppose it's too warm to eat, so it's like a diet, I guess. But yeah, the warm weather can bugger off. I like it being warm when the World Cup's on, and at time of recording it is. So it's nice that that's happening at the same time. You can just sort of lay there and watch a football match and just sort of think, I don't have to move for 45 minutes. That's nice. But yeah, it can go bugger off, frankly. Bring on Christmas. 6 months till Christmas.
Oh, God, yeah. Christ, that's
Can't
a scary thought.
I know, it'll be here before you know it.
Oh, another year gone.
I know. How old are we?
Too old. I'm not going to state my age. I'm just going to go with I'm too old.
Too old to be talking about it.
Yes.
There we go. We'll move on.
So I'm a bit hay fevery at the minute, even though I've taken a load of pills before recording. So,
that'll be fun.
Yeah, hopefully it won't be too bad. I did a recording a couple of weeks ago where I could hardly get the sentences formed by the last few paragraphs because my throat was tightening. So as long as I don't get to that point again, I'll be okay.
I'm exceedingly lucky. It's never been something I've suffered from. Everybody I've ever known suffers from it, and I've never had hay fever.
Oh, lucky.
Touch wood, because you can develop it, can't you? But,
yeah, I never used to have it as a kid. It's been the last 7 or 8 years, but each year it's getting progressively worse. So
yeah. I used to have a friend at school, he had asthma and hay fever. I mean, that's just a double whammy
combo
of luckiness, isn't it?
Oh.
But yeah, he got the hay fever and I didn't. Thankfully, I've never had it.
Well, fingers crossed you won't get it, because
it's open.
It's not. It just makes summer even worse.
Yeah.
When you're pissed off about the heat and then you can't breathe and you're full of snot, it's even worse.
Basically, we're not fans, is what we're saying.
Yeah.
There's people in Australia and America thinking, well, fuck it, it's only 28 degrees. What are you talking about? I got a friend in Phoenix, in Arizona, and they've got to have the aircon on Christmas Day because it's more like 35 degrees.
Oh, Jesus.
Well, they are in the middle of a desert, is what I would say to that, but...
It does kind of hammer home that the UK really struggles with any sort of temperature, hot or cold, but we're just so used to...
Temperate.
Yeah. Anything does us in.
Yeah. If it's too cold, we've had it. If it's too... to be fair, the cold, I think we were saying this, the cold's fine because you can heat up. You can warm up. You can put a layer on, can't you? Yeah.
Sitting on the sofa with a cup of tea and a blankie is lovely.
Yeah. A couple of biscuits and stuff, watching Christmas TV. Excellent stuff. Can't do that in summer.
No.
The other thing I hate, just derailing it even more, is why do blokes think it's acceptable just to, I'm just going to take my shirt off. I don't want to see it, mate.
Yeah.
I don't want to see it. And it's not just because I can't, because I've got tits, right? It's not... that's not the reason why. I just don't want to see your man nipples and horrible tattoos. Thank you very much. I'm not saying all tattoos are horrible. I'm saying the ones that these people have tend to be horrible. But I just don't want to see it. And women can't. Moreover, women can't do that. I'm sure women feel just as hot as men, if not hotter.
Yeah.
And they've got like tits and bras and God knows what else to bloody deal with as well in the heat, which can't be fun. But anyway, I digress. Heat wave, everybody! It's tropical. Hey!
Yay! It sucks.
Right. It fucking sucks. Bring on Christmas. Bring on the cold and the wet, and I can't wait. Put a coat on. Oh, it's going to be so nice. Scarves. Oh, I miss them. But anyway, where were we?
Well, we were about to start the story.
We were.
Yeah, so if you are ready, I can start the story. There's a little bit of an intro just to build the scene, but then it'll get very quickly fun and ridiculous for you.
Cool. Ready whenever you are, Amy.
A quick message to our listeners from our friend and guest Holly Rose about the Cosplay Journal, a coffee table magazine focusing on the diversity and craft of cosplay. Released on the 11th of June, the Cosplay Journal wants to show that not only can anyone be involved in cosplay, but that everyone is capable of learning new skills, creating amazing things, and bringing joy into their own and other people's lives through the art of costume making. The first issue features craft focus articles on sewing, armour building and makeup, as well as interviews with some incredible cosplayers who have taken their own paths with their hobby, some becoming professionals, some simply being the perfectionist amateur. They ask, are cosplay guests worth it in their opinion piece, and give readers a look into the everyday lives of cosplayers to show you the hard work that goes into these wonderful creations. All of this is accompanied by images of cosplayers from around the UK, showcasing the amazing skills and artistry from the cosplay community. So make sure that you head over to Amazon to pre-order your copy of the Cosplay Journal to ensure that you don't miss out. The consumption of alcoholic beverages has been a contentious topic in America since the colonial period. Informal social controls in the home and community helped maintain the expectation that the abuse of alcohol was unacceptable. One quote from the time said, "Drunkenness was condemned and punished, but only as an abuse of a God-given gift. Drink itself was not looked upon as culpable any more than food deserves the blame for the sin of gluttony. Excess was a personal indiscretion."
Which is weird, because in the UK, the Temperance Society, it was the demon drink.
Yeah, very different.
Like gin, mother's ruin, and all that kind of stuff.
Which it seems like the better way to go about it, because alcohol is addictive. So it is to blame as much as the person.
I think in Britain it was seen as one of the social ills. So it was, instead of saying it was a God-given thing, instead of saying, it was people like Joseph Rowntree and Dickens, sort of God-fearing gentlemen who sort of, but they saw it as a symptom of something a bit deeper, which was obviously degradation and slum life and things like that. So they went about, they didn't say it's your fault. They said it was a symptom of something that needed fixing, which was like social ills and stuff. So it's like bit of a different take on it in America and the UK there.
Shortly after the United States obtained independence, the Whiskey Rebellion took place in western Pennsylvania, in protest of government-imposed taxes on whiskey. Although the taxes were primarily levied to help pay down the newly formed national debt, it was also received support from some social reformers who hoped a sin tax would raise public awareness about the harmful effects of alcohol. Benjamin Rush, one of the foremost physicians of the late 18th century, believed in moderation rather than prohibition. In his treatise, The Inquiry into the Effects of Ardent Spirits upon the Human Body and Mind, in 1784, Rush argued that the excessive use of alcohol was injurious to physical and psychological health, labelling drunkenness as a disease. Apparently influenced by Rush's widely discussed beliefs, around 200 farmers in a Connecticut community formed a temperance association in 1789. Similar associations were formed in Virginia in 1800 and New York in 1808. Within a decade, other temperance groups had formed in 8 other states, some of them being statewide organizations. The words of Rush and other early temperance reformers served to digitimize the use of alcohol for men and women. While men enjoyed drinking and often considered it vital to their health, women who began to embrace the ideology of true motherhood refrained from consumption of alcohol. Middle-class women, who were considered the moral authorities in their household, consequently rejected the drinking of alcohol, which they believed to be a threat to the home. In 1830, an average American consumed 1.7 bottles of hard liquor a week, which is 3 times the amount consumed in 2010.
Because it would have been hard liquor then as well. It wouldn't have been
Oh, yeah.
as regulated.
Also, there was not much to do in those days, so drinking
No telly.
probably helped.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's an escape, isn't it? You just get blind drunk, then you don't think about how horrible your life is.
It's like there's a reason the guys in the Wild West were constantly shit-faced. It's because their lives there were horrible.
Well, it's A Million Ways to Die in the West, isn't it? It was like, it just says that. It's horrible. Everything can kill you.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that guy just touched an nail the other week and died within 3 days of tetanus, you know? And that's what it was like. It was, you can't imagine how terrible and awful it was.
Yeah. Being an alcoholic is probably not that surprising if you were stuck in those days. It's like, I'd probably turn to drink pretty quick.
Well, plus, if you're pickled all the time, infections aren't going to get you, I suppose, either.
Yeah, it would help with that as well. The American Temperance Society, the ATS, was formed in 1826 and helped initiate the first temperance movement and served as a foundation for many later groups. By 1835, the ATS had reached 1.5 million members. The Prohibition movement, also known as the Dry Crusade, continued in the 1840s, spearheaded by pietistic religious denominations, especially the Methodists. The late 19th century saw the temperance movement broaden its focus from abstinence to include all behaviours and institutions related to alcoholic consumption. The temperance movement lost strength and was marginalised during the American Civil War. Following the war, the Dry Crusade was revived by the National Prohibition Party, which was formed in 1869, and the Women's Christian Temperance Union, which was formed in 1873. In 1881, Kansas became the first state to outlaw alcoholic beverages in its constitution. Carrie Nation, which is a person I'm going to do an episode on at some point because she is insane, gained notoriety for enforcing the state's ban on alcohol by walking into saloons, screaming at customers, and using her hatchet to destroy bottles and crates of alcohol. Nation recruited ladies into the Carrie Nation Prohibition group, which she also led. While her vigilante techniques were rare, other activists enforced the Dry Crusade by entering saloons, singing, praying, and urging saloon keepers to stop selling alcohol.
Yeah, that'll work.
If anything, it's just going to make people drink more.
Of course it is. Make me drink more. And I don't drink.
Other dry states, especially those in the South, enacted prohibition legislation, as did individual counties within a state. In the presidential election of 1916, the Democratic incumbent Woodrow Wilson and the Republican candidate Charles Everett Hughes ignored the prohibition issue, as did both parties' political platforms. Democrats and Republicans had strong wet and dry factions, and the election was expected to be close, with neither candidate wanting to alienate any part of their political base.
Funny that.
Never happens anymore.
No, it's not like there would have been an alcohol lobby either, I'm guessing.
In March 1917, the 65th Congress convened, in which the Dries outnumbered the Wets by 140 to 64 in the Democratic Party and 138 to 62 amongst Republicans. With America's declaration of war against Germany in April, German Americans, a major force against Prohibition, were sidelined, and their protests were subsequently ignored. In addition, a new justification for Prohibition arose. Prohibiting the production of alcoholic beverages would allow more resources, especially grain, to be devoted to the war effort. While wartime prohibition was a spark for the movement, World War I ended before nationwide prohibition was enacted. A resolution calling for the constitutional amendment to accomplish nationwide prohibition was introduced in Congress and passed by both houses in December 1917. By January 1919, the amendment had been ratified by 36 of the 48 states, making it law. Eventually, only 2 states, Connecticut and Rhode Island, opted out of ratifying it. On the 28th of October 1919, Congress passed enabling legislation known as the Volstead Act to enforce the 18th Amendment, which went into effect in 1920. Prohibition officially began on January 16, 1920, when the amendment went into effect. As you can imagine, Prohibition made it difficult for bar owners to make a living, though the trade in illegal alcohol was a big business. One bar owner who found himself in financial difficulty was Tony Marino. Marino owned a speakeasy in New York City, and by the winter of 1933 was so far in debt that he was facing bankruptcy. Marino told 4 of his friends about his problems: Joseph Red Murphy, Francis Pasqua, Hershey Green, and Daniel Kreisberg. The 5 of them discussed methods to raise enough money before coming to the idea of an insurance scam. The plan was inspired by a plot that Marino had performed the previous year, in which he befriended a homeless woman named Mabel and convinced her to take out a $2,000 life insurance policy, naming him as the beneficiary. One frigid night, he force-fed her alcohol, stripped her of her clothing, doused the sheets and mattresses with icy water, and pushed the bed beneath an open window. The medical examiner listed the cause of her death as bronchial pneumonia, and Marino collected the money without incident. The 5 of them agreed that this was a good idea, but needed to find someone to make the target of their plot. This was when Pasqua said, "Why don't you take out insurance on Malloy?" He was referring to Michael Malloy, an old homeless man who frequented the speakeasy to drink, but rarely paid his tab. The 5 of them knew little about Malloy except that he was homeless, had no family, and originally came from Ireland.
Well, yes. He's called Michael Malloy.
Yeah.
I mean, he might as well just be called Irish or Irishman. Well, there you go.
They also knew that he was an alcoholic and believed that it would be simple for the older man to drink himself to death. Marino agreed that Malloy would be the perfect candidate and called the older man over. Malloy believed that he was about to be thrown out of the bar, but was delighted when Marino offered him unlimited credit.
Nice.
There was, however, one catch. Malloy would have to sign a petition to get Marino elected to local office. Malloy quickly agreed and signed the petition, which was actually a life insurance policy that the 5 men had taken out on him. 1 from Metropolitan Life and 2 from Prudential. They stood to gain over $3,500, which would come to $65,000 in today's money, if Malloy died of an accidental death. Malloy began to use his unlimited credit, and as predicted, he abused it, drinking incredible quantities of whiskey. Expecting the alcohol to kill him, the 5 men were shocked when Malloy would wake up the next day, slightly hungover, and begin drinking again. They knew that they would have to get involved to ensure the older man's death. They began to mix antifreeze into Malloy's whiskey. When it had no discernible effect, they switched the whiskey completely.
Just get him on antifreeze.
Yeah. Malloy drank the antifreeze until he passed out. After a few hours, he woke up, returned to the bar, and asked for more.
Basically just Father Jack at this point, isn't it? Drink!
Essentially, yeah. He's just demanding drink after drink.
The honey badger of alcoholics.
When it became clear that the antifreeze wasn't enough to kill him, the men switched it out for turpentine.
Nice.
Malloy still refused to feel the effects.
To be fair, I would say antifreeze is probably stronger than terps.
To be honest, I wouldn't want to drink either.
No, I wouldn't. But I've known people who drink like sort of white meth and stuff like that.
Oh, God. The turpentine was eventually changed for horse liniment before they finally tried rat poison.
Nice. There you go.
All the while, Malloy continued to drink and appeared to suffer no ill effects from the deadly chemicals.
Fuck off, cop!
Knowing that Malloy liked seafood, and with Pasqua having seen a man die once after consuming oysters and whiskey, they soaked some oysters in wood alcohol before offering them to Malloy. Malloy ate the oysters, said that they were delicious, and asked for more.
This is just basically turning into the song Rasputin now.
Yeah, he's...
He drank it all
impossible to kill.
Said I could fly. Mike Malloy, etc.
The group then left some sardines out to spoil, mixed in some rat poison and shrapnel before making it into a sandwich for Malloy.
Fucking hell.
But they want their payout.
Yeah, and they don't want to, they can't actually kill him. Yeah. Like, will nothing kill this man?
Malloy ate the sandwich, washing it down with more toxic chemicals, and remained unaffected.
This dude's awesome.
I do really love Michael Malloy.
Turns out his name's Colin MacLeod of the Clan MacLeod.
Unable to think of what to do next, and with mounting costs from the amount of alcohol and chemicals being consumed by Malloy, Marino and his friends decided to try and freeze Malloy to death instead. The group now included a few of other Marino's regulars, including petty criminals John McNally and Edward Tin Ear Smith,
Nice.
Tough Tony Bastone, and his slavish sidekick Joseph Maglione. One night, when the temperature was as low as -26, they waited until Malloy passed out, carried him across town to a park, stripped him naked, and dumped him in the snow.
I see a flaw in this plan. They've already fed him loads of antifreeze. It's never going to work.
He's not going to freeze with what he's got in him.
He's pickled. That much alcohol, he's never freezing. It's like vodka. It's like you put vodka in a freezer, it doesn't freeze.
Yeah, I think he doesn't even have a blood system anymore. It's just
It's
an
just
alcohol
alcohol.
system.
Just 100% proof in there. It's the human can of Carling Special Brew, Carlsberg Special Brew.
The group then poured 5 gallons of freezing water on him. Satisfied that he would quickly freeze to death, the group left him.
I bet he doesn't.
The next day, Marino returned to his bar to find Malloy curled up in the back room,
Nice.
complaining about a wee chill.
Nice.
Sick of the apparently unkillable Malloy, the group turned to a local cab driver, Harry Green, and paid him $150 to run Malloy over with his taxi. After getting Malloy drunk, the group took him out into the street and held him up as Green sped his cab straight at him.
Looking less and less like an accident.
Just as the taxi was about to hit Malloy, he jumped out of the way.
How?
Lightning fast drunk reflexes.
Yeah. He's like Jackie Chan, drunken boxer.
Green tried again, and Malloy dodged the cab a second time. A quote from the Smithsonian about the third attempt reads as follows. Green raced towards Malloy at 50 miles per hour. With every second, Malloy loomed larger through the windshield. 2 thuds, one loud and one soft, the body against the hood and then dropping onto the ground. For good measure, Green backed up over him. The gang was confident Malloy was dead, but a passing car scared them from the scene before they could confirm. Over the next few days, the group waited to hear about Malloy's death in the paper, but no news appeared. They began calling around local morgues and hospitals, trying to find where Malloy had ended up, but could find no trace of him. 5 days after the hit and run, Malloy walked into the bar, bruised and limping, and called out, "I sure am dying for a drink."
The hell?
The group had spent so much money trying to kill Malloy and in paying Green that they were close to breaking even on the insurance payout rather than making money.
Not fucking worth it anymore, is it?
I know, it's like, at what point would you just quit?
Just cut your losses, isn't it? Just, whatever.
Just kill someone else and use
Yeah.
them on the insurance.
He's homeless, nobody cares.
Yeah, find another homeless person.
Call him Michael Malloy, bump him off, and it's like,
Yeah.
because this dude ain't dying.
Rather than simply admitting defeat and moving on to another target, they became desperate to kill Malloy simply out of principle.
I was going to say it's a principle thing now, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just like, you made it personal, you twat.
Yeah, you have refused to die. We are definitely going to try and kill you now.
I'm going to kill you if it kills me.
On February 22nd, after he passed out for the night, the 5 men took him into Murphy's room, put a hose in his mouth that was connected to a gas jet, and turned it on. Malloy suffocated on the toxic gases and finally died.
Blimey.
Michael Malloy was pronounced dead of lumbar pneumonia by a bribed doctor and quickly buried. Using the death certificate, the group were able to claim the insurance money, though made much less than they originally intended. The group, so amazed by Malloy, began telling people the story of their plot and how unkillable the man was, believing the tale too good not to tell. Eventually, police officers began to hear the rumours of Rasputin Mike in speakeasies all over town, and upon learning that Michael Malloy had died that night, they had the body exhumed and forensically examined.
Yeah, funny that.
When it was determined that he'd been killed, Marino and the gang were quickly arrested and put on trial. Green, the cab driver, made a deal with the prosecutor in order to avoid a harsh sentence. When the group was found guilty, Green was sent to prison, the others were sentenced to death. They were all sent to Sing Sing prison, where they were executed in the electric chair. Unlike Mike, it only took one attempt.
Nice. Nice. I mean, it just didn't work out for him, did it, at the end of the day?
No, big time.
You just pushed him off something. Well, knowing him,
just take him up to a building, yeah.
Yeah, just take him up to a building, drunk, pushed off. There you go. He'll just splat on the floor, won't he? It'd be easy, done, job done. It's not outside the realms of possibility that a drunk person would do that. So, no, they have to be clever. No.
I know most stereotypes are bad and untrue, but this just shows never try and kill an Irishman with alcohol. It will not work.
Up until quite recently, it was a point of pride. Have you ever heard you maybe have done it, but the Oscar Wilde story when he was doing the tour of America, doing a book tour.
Mm.
And you know Oscar Wilde's quite tall Irishman, quite fey, you know?
Yeah.
Not effeminate, but fey. I would say, he probably was. So you can imagine what tin miners in Pennsylvania would have thought of him. Not much is the answer, because he went to a tin mine in Pennsylvania and did the book tour, did the lecture, and then they thought they'd be clever and thought, we'll win some money off him, we'll challenge him to a drinking contest. He drank every single one of them under the table. Every single one of them. And he said, why would you challenge an Irishman to a drinking contest? Even one who, doesn't look like he'd be that up for it. I'm still Irish. I could still drink I have drunken every single one of you under the table. But yeah, they apparently had a lot more respect for him when he left than when he came. So
I can fully believe that.
I just like the idea of it. Oh yeah, well, just look at him, city boy, poet and dramatist, and yeah, well, we'll have him because we're rough, tough blokes. And it's like, oh, hang on a minute. Plus, he was a big lad as well. He's like 6'5". He wasn't short, so why? But yeah, like I say, up until recently, it was a stereotype that they were happy to propagate. I don't think so much these days, because but stereotypes exist for a reason. They might not all be great, but there has to be a grain of truth in it to be a stereotype or an archetype, isn't it?
I fully believe on the whole Irish make great drinkers because, well, now there's two stories about brilliant Irish drinkers, but Michael Malloy proves that, yeah, an Irishman can drink and drink and drink.
Yeah. Tough life, tough. Back then, especially, I mean, when the British were basically just treating them like dirt, and all they had to do was drink. I suppose it's like any poison. If you build up a certain resistance to it,
Mm.
And those guys weren't drinking the alcohol we drink today. They were drinking like pure grain alcohol.
Oh yeah,
the stuff
strong stuff.
The stuff they used to make in baths. I remember old stories of old fellas making like sort of homebrew stuff in baths. That was the whole thing in like moonshine, wasn't it? In Prohibition America was the fact that this stuff could actually kill you. I think there was a thing in Russia about it as well. Because vodka's so expensive, or used to be so expensive there. They would make their own, and it would be so strong it could, like, one drink of it could kill you. But it was worth it because it's vodka.
That's the thing as well. This is Prohibition time, so that bootleg whiskey, that was going to be some strong stuff. And
God knows what was in there.
Yeah, it's probably more toxic than the wood alcohol they were giving.
Yeah, yeah, probably. Because there'll be God knows what horrible, horrific crap in there. Because that's, like I said, that's the whole thing with the Russian stuff. They don't know what's in there. So there's like rat poison, like you say, there's rat poison and bloody paraquat and all kinds of horrible stuff. But, it looks good, all right, so you'll have a drink of it. It'll be the last drink you ever have, but, I guess it's worth it. But, yeah, Michael could... I do question their wisdom throwing a drunk man in front of a car, because when you're drunk, you are actually more likely to survive something like that because you're loosey-goosey.
I think that's how he managed to dodge it twice. He's just doing the The
It
drunk.
is,
Whoa.
it is literally the drunken boxer. You ever seen that film?
Great film.
It's a great film, but it's the whole thing is because you're so drunk, you're not thinking about it. It's just all instinct. It's probably it's probably the thing. That's how they reckon, like, sort of people who fall off things when they're drunk, that they do survive because they're loose.
They should have just taken him out when he was sober and hit him with the cab. It probably would have done it.
Probably just have killed him.
Yeah.
Just kill him, push him on something. Oh, I don't fucking know. Idiots.
Or just realise it's not working and pick a non-Irish homeless person.
Yeah. Pick an English one. They can't hold the drink.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't even drink, God's sakes. So I'd have been perfect for him.
But yeah, Mike's nicknames after this were Mike the Durable, Iron Mike, and the Rasputin of the Bronx.
Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah.
Because I'm big into Rasputin anyway, so it's like, yeah, awesome.
And the whole thing where they got caught because they told people the story, it's like, you're idiots, but at the same time, I can kind of understand it because it's so unbelievable. It's like, I've got to tell someone.
No. You don't tell someone about a crime. Hey, lads, you'll never believe this. That's how they all get caught. It's the thing with the Great Train Robbers as well. That's how they got caught, because they just kept telling people. I mean, you've got to have a certain level of power before you get away with shit like that, Even the Krays got caught. Not for that, admittedly, but, Prohibition era America's weird. It's just, I did my GCSE stuff on Prohibition. It's just a weird time. I mean, you can't imagine a whole country. You can imagine states or cities saying we're dry. You can't imagine a whole country as big as America saying, that's it, no more alcohol.
Especially when it was so ingrained in their culture in a lot of places as well. Like we said at the beginning, like the Wild West is. Could you imagine rolling up in a town like that and being like, okay, no more alcohol?
Just sarsaparilla,
people couldn't function.
It's like Britain. I mean, it's the whole of Britain. But then again, it's more difficult for the religious lot to get a foothold on that one, because beer and wine was introduced to Britain by monks. So it was really, plus Catholicism, which wasn't so big in America in the Prohibition era. So, but Catholicism, certainly, I think that's one of the motives for it as well. They didn't like Catholics being able to drink, and obviously with the transubstantiation and all that kind of stuff. I have a feeling at that point in American history where the Catholic was just as much reviled as blacks and Jews, which is amazing when you think about sort of that era. You'd think, but they didn't. I was actually watching something the other day where it says, at one point, at this point in history, this Prohibition era, Italians were seen as inverted commas coloureds.
Yeah.
And they were considered the same as blacks, and the Irish were the same.
Yeah, there were a lot of groups who they were just like, no, you're on the list. We don't like you.
I think the worst treated were the Chinese and the Asians, who were literally buried in the railroads when they died. It's just like, wow. And they wonder why there's trouble now. It's like, yeah, because you've not dealt with this shit, lads. You just covered it up.
Yeah. It's like
Prohibition didn't work, by the way.
It's like England. We've got really terrible history when it comes to racism, and taking over countries and doing horrible things. But I think we dealt with it in a better way than America has, and sort of we seem to have progressed from that a lot better than the United States has. I think on a whole, we seem to know what we've done and appreciate that we did wrong and try and improve, where America's like, no, there was nothing wrong. They've kind of got the denial phase still.
See, I think the difference is that Britain, it wasn't built on that.
Yeah. It was something we did. It wasn't what made us.
It's relatively recent, and it was sort of greedy money making rather than building the nation. The nation was built on white slavery, effectively, like sort of feudalism and serfs and stuff like that. And that stuff came much later, because we were quite an old nation. So yes, we had the empire. Yes, it was generally horrible, but we kind of turned it around, made it the Commonwealth, and tried to atone for a lot of the stuff that we did. Hasn't always worked. It hasn't always been easy, but
no, and we've still got a long way to go, but we've done well considering.
I think they've been lucky with like sort of the Queen because everybody loves the Queen in the Commonwealth, and they genuinely do. I mean, the Commonwealth is a weird entity because it's basically us saying, "Yeah, sorry about that, lads." So it's a weird one, but like I say, the nation wasn't built on it, so we've not got guilt in the same way that America has guilt and are quite scared of minority. They're scared. I mean, it's fear. It's they won't admit it. They'll say no, it isn't, but it totally is. They're completely scared that especially the black man will rise up and destroy America, which they won't. I mean, why would they do that? I mean, they've got every reason to, but I don't think they would. Whereas over here, don't get me wrong, we had slavery. We didn't have it for long. I don't think we were very comfortable with it. But it's an age thing. We're a much older nation. And, we've got a longer history than, say, America, which is why, we got things like Prohibition over here, because plus we've never been what I would call a religious nation for a long time. Religion hasn't really come into it. We had temperance societies and that, but it was mainly middle class women with nothing to do. And this was before suffragettism. The suffrage movement, lest we forget, there weren't a lot of working class women in it. Mainly because they were too busy working. But yeah, so we took a different route. A much less religious one. I don't know why that would be, because it's not like that we weren't religious. I don't think it was just something they wanted to get involved with. But it's whatever. You would never get prohibition in this country.
No.
I mean, there's still temperance societies now. I mean, there's still sort of like old-fashioned temperance bars, and it's a weird period of history. Is 20s America? Very, very odd. A lot of religious righty types. So you wouldn't think would be like Woodrow Wilson was very, very religious right, even though he was a Democrat. You would probably recognise him as a lot more Republican than you would a Democrat these days.
Well, I found with quite a bit of American history, the parties are kind of the opposite then to what you think of them now. Yeah. The Republicans were a lot more left wing, and the Democrats were very, very right wing. But it's kind of shifted the complete opposite direction now, and it does kind of throw you when you read some history and you think that doesn't sound right at all. Because it's like, why are the Republicans like pro all these good things, and the Democrats are just standing against like positive change? But
plus, back then, a lot of Democrats were. I mean, Wilson was accused of it for years. I don't know whether he was or not, but a lot of Democrats were actually in the KKK.
Yeah,
loads of them were, because there were a lot of them were like from the southern states. So the KKK, obviously, the 20s, that was their era. That was their period. That's when they shone in their stupid white pajamas.
With their names like Goblin and Kleagle and
Grand
Dragon.
Wizard.
Oh.
Yeah, the Grand Dragon. Oh. I mean, I'm not being funny, but who wouldn't want to be in a... I want to be the Grand Wizard of something. That'd be awesome. What you talking about? Sign me up. It doesn't matter that I'm Jewish. It's fine. You can't see my face anyway. Was it Matt? It could be anyone under there. I don't trust secret societies. That's all I'm saying. Like when people say I'm a Mason. Really? Ugh. Get away from me.
Are you, or did you just join one meeting so that you could say you're a Mason?
I don't trust it. It's just a stupid little boys' club anyway, as far as I can tell. They don't do anything. Just do all the, I'll get rid of your traffic tickets, don't worry about it. That's what it seems to me, but yeah. I'm not obviously saying the Masons are the same as the Ku Klux Klan before anybody writes in.
Because I realised we did just go straight from KKK to Masons. That's not a comparison.
Secret societies of any, it's like the Secret Seven, the famous five. I don't trust them twats either. Especially seeing as everybody in the Secret Seven, the villains always seem to be swarthy types. So yeah, knowing my Enid Blyton history like I do, I know what that means. Swarthy foreigners. Swarthy. Do you mean swarthy, or do you just mean black, Enid? Is that what you mean?
She was trying to hide it.
You can change all the gollywugs you want. I know the truth. They're not goblins. The worst thing was about the Enid Blyton, this is a hilarious thing, is when they, obviously, I'm sure you know the history of them changing the gollywugs out. because the Gollywogs were always the bad guys in Noddy. But obviously, when it became apparent that maybe that wasn't a good thing to have, they changed them for goblins or gremlins or whatever they called them.
Wow.
They just
I've never seen it pre-goblins.
Oh, I remember, yeah, because I had a book that I think it was like from the 60s, 50s, 60s. That was like, well, you know, when you get a hand-me-down book in a family and maybe your mum and dad or an uncle had it or something and you get given it. I remember seeing the Gollywogs as the bad guys. They're the ones who stole Noddy's car and they looked fucking terrifying. I'd be scared of them. But they changed them. And they changed them to goblins. The only problem is the drawings of the goblins looked awfully like the drawings the Nazis used to do in textbooks warning kids about Jews. So it actually made it worse. It wasn't by design. I will say that. It's just a horrific, horrible coincidence that they probably, I'm guessing somebody just they thought of a goblin and they must have seen it in a book years ago. Or seen a reference of it and thought, oh yeah, that's what a goblin looks like, and that's what they look like. So they just made it. Yeah, we're not having to go at black people now. We're having to go with the Jews. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
Hopefully, it was just a coincidence, and it's not like.
It was totally a coincidence.
What's the? And then there were none. The Agatha Christie book. It's like, oh, we'll call it 10 Little N-word. It's like, oh, that's not allowed. Right, 10 Little Indians. It's like, well, that's fine, isn't it? It's like, no, you've. Okay, it's less bad, but it's still bad.
See, on the other hand, it was of its time.
Yeah.
And is it right to whitewash something? Because there's this thing going on at the moment, the writer of Little House on the Prairie, who grew up in the 1860s, something like that, wrote the book in the 1880s, and there were references to that word, and there were references to Indians, and there were with the word or people only Indians, right? Now, obviously, it's not the worldview we would have now, but is it right to erase it because we feel uncomfortable with it? I don't think it is, because if we do that, we don't learn.
Yeah,
it's like
I think if it's from that time, like if it was written then, keep it as it is and acknowledge the fact that this is bad and it's changed. But if you're like, if someone decided to write something now set in that time, no, don't use those words because you're writing it now. It's like I saw something on a Looney Tunes cartoon where at the beginning they put in, you know, there are some representations of people in this cartoon that at the time were seen to be perfectly fine, but in our enlightened time we know that they are wrong and racist, but we are not going to remove them to hide that fact that this is how we were. We're presenting it to you as it was, with the knowledge of, yes, as a society we've moved forward and we know it's wrong. And this was on like the start of an actual cartoon on a DVD. They put that on before it played the cartoon, and that's how you need to do it. Don't hide it, but highlight the fact that this is what society was like. You saw that this was fine to do. We know better now. Let's learn from it. And that's how you need to do it.
I think, yeah, I agree with you completely. I think that's exactly the way to do it, because otherwise you're not learning things like context. It has to be, context is everything. Here's a good example. Huckleberry Finn. Now, you got that character Jim.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, he's got a slightly problematic name. But the context is that they know it's a slightly problematic. Even back then, Twain wrote it to be problematic, and that Hook and Tom Sawyer would never call him that. But it's like Injun Joe and all that kind of, it's. If you get rid of that, then you're missing the point of what Twain was saying in the first place. Yeah, because Twain wasn't racist. Twain knew exactly what he was doing, and he knew, I think this is horrible too, even back then. Because this is the time when, the Little House on the Prairie stuff was being written as well. So you've got two completely different viewpoints, but the same language. And, it's difficult. Anyway, we were talking about Michael Malloy.
Yeah, so where can people find you online then?
They can find me on Twitter at Cymru Nerd Cave. You can find me on Facebook, Glenn Jakeman. Please do send me a message, basically stating where you know me from, otherwise I won't basically add you. And you can find the podcast at btte.libsyn.com. It's called Back to the 80s, and it is a celebration of all things from 1977 to 1994, basically the 80s sort of influenced all that stuff. And yeah, Amy's been on it a few times. The episode Amy recorded with me quite recently about aliens is going up very soon, possibly over this weekend. So she's rather good on it. She's all right. Yeah. She'll do.
You let me pick a film I'm hugely passionate about, so...
So yeah, well, hopefully it'll happen again soon as well. And get you on soon after I've had me hollybobs. Because I'm not doing anything for another couple of weeks because hollybobs.
Don't blame you.
Innit? But yeah, that's basically where you can find me.
Awesome, and yeah, definitely check it out because even the episodes I'm not on, they're pretty good. You know,
not as good as the ones you're on though. Let's face it.
No, it is a great show. I listened to one before we started recording together. I was like, I'm going to go check out Back to the 80s. Just randomly picked your Highlander episode.
Oh yeah, with Duncan, wasn't it?
But it was such good fun that by the end of that episode, I'd already put Highlander on. And watch the film as well.
There you go.
Yeah, you know, it's just fun talk about cool 80s stuff. So
it's never going to be. I mean, if you want a breakdown of technical stats for the film Highlander, it's probably not the podcast to listen to. This is more. I remember. That's all it is. It's never going to be. I remember the third art director. He was awesome. You know, that's not going to happen.
Yeah. It's just people gushing about how awesome Clancy Brown is in that film.
Pretty much, I think that's 90% of that one. I think basically, he's Mr. Krabs. So yeah, it's all good stuff. But yeah, no, it's a really enjoyable one, and Amy's been on it a few times, and she will be on it a lot more, I'm guessing, because it's nice to have a good guest on.
Awesome. Yeah, and you'll definitely be coming back here as well.
Hey! I keep trying to get alienated from it, but it's not working.
Well, if the listeners enjoyed this episode, you can find us on social media as well. Our Twitter is @eccentric_earth. You can find us on Facebook by going to facebook.com/eccentricearth. And you can check us out on Instagram as well. If you want to get in contact with any suggestions for any topics you want to see us cover, or any feedback or little questions you want to field to us or our guests, our email address is eccentricearth@outlook.com, and we're on all major podcast providers and YouTube, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any episodes.
And you should, because it's really good.
Thank you. Plus, if you go to YouTube, you get to look at all the fun comments that get left on there.
Great.
We get a lot more of our feedback through YouTube than other ways, so... Well, thank you very much once again for coming on, Glenn. It's been an absolute pleasure, as always.
Oh, my pleasure. All mine, definitely.
Right, and we will catch everybody next time. Bye.
Bye-bye for now.